Nigeria's worst floods in a decade is being partly blamed on the effects of climate change. Unusually heavy rain has led to the deaths of more than 500 people and the destruction of tens of thousands of homes. The government is starting aerial assessments of one of the worst hit areas in Anambra State. Thousands of people are trapped in remote communities and at least 1.4 million have been displaced. Well, for more on this, we can now speak to Air Commodore Kenneth Iyamu. He's a renowned climate change expert and researcher on climate crisis. He's also a member of the Global Air Force Climate Change Collaboration Group and author of many books and articles on the environment. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Charles, for having me. Yeah.
Do you believe that all this flooding that's happening, heavy rains in Nigeria, is induced by, the impact of climate change?
Yes, the climate change has come to live with us. Now, what is climate change? It's the simply inability of the climate to regulate itself. But in the technical term, it's the rise in the Earth's average temperature that have monumental effect on the world weather and climate. Now, it became very obvious since 2017. 2017, the ice in the Antarctica, 8 times the size of New York, that was supposed to take a decade to melted in 4 years, adding 1.5 billion tons of water to the ocean. And that is the amount of water that could be used. That's 150 times the amount of water that could be used the whole of the UK. So climate change is increasing the possibility of the flooding that we are having. It's increasing it because we live in the southern hemisphere. When you are talking of climate change, what are you talking about? You are talking of temperature and water. In the southern hemisphere, the temperature is really, really very, very unstable. We saw the trend coming since January. When you saw the snow, the snow was very, very high. That was a very good sign, because the snow is going to melt. When it melts, it's going to enter, fresh water is going to join into the ocean. And as I speak to you now, the atmosphere have 3,100 miles raised to power 3 of water in the atmosphere. And that's just 0.001 of the water in the ocean. So climate change has aggravated a whole lot of, yes. The World Meteorological Organization told us that, look, there will be flooding, but the climate possibility have the possibility of increasing it 30%.
Right.
So what does that mean now? You have rain that was supposed to fall in a year, falling in 48 hours.
Yes, it's quite scary, isn't it?
Yes.
There's been a lot of talk about how to help a country like Nigeria and others in Africa to combat the effects of climate change. How would you suggest that this be done? How do we fight climate change in Nigeria?
Fighting climate change, first of all, you cannot start solving a problem without knowing the history. There are predisposing conditions. First of all, I want to take you back to 1927 when the Mississippi flood happened. That's the worst in history. Now you have about 500,000 people displaced, and it took about $250 million to $1 billion to be able to address that. What did they do? They went back to the drawing board. They invested in dams, they invested in levees, and they invested in dikes. Now, flooding, addressing flooding is possible, like the case in Nigeria, but it will come at a very huge cost. You see, from River Niger, coming from the Lago Dam up to Anambra and Lokoja, there's no dam there. There's no dam there. So what are you going to do? You cannot put dam without a levee at the dike. They all have different function. The dam, you put it at the upstream, it's going to get water. It's going to collect water. When it's so large, it's going to release it for the levees to protect and for the dikes to take. And again, too, along the way, you're going to get spillover point. Spillover point, because water is very important here, because it's very useful for our agriculture. The spillover point, you take it to an unvirgin area. When the water has gone, there are sometimes when you are passing over River Benue, you can almost see the depth. So it is so bad now because it is affecting substantially.
Right. So basically the government needs to build dams, build levees
Yes.
in order to try and contain the water.
Contain the amount of water.
And I mean, you're clearly someone who is very knowledgeable about these things. Are people listening to you in Nigeria? Are there a lot of climate deniers in this country?
See, if you deny the climate now, you are just like the orchestra player who back the wall and he faces the wall and back the real issue. How else do you explain all these things that are happening if it is not climate change? Now, you see, when you put up a resistance, you put up a mitigation, you put up adaptation this year, hoping that this will suffice. The amount of rain that is going to come next year is going to make no sense of this. So what do? We're going to continue to sensitize and make people to understand that, look, you must reduce charcoal, carbon emission.
Right.
Don't forget our contribution to carbon emission is less than 1%. It does not measure with the gravity of the consequences that we are having.
Okay. I want to thank you very much indeed.
Yes.
What you've said is very interesting and very informative. Air Commodore Kenneth Iyamu is a renowned climate change expert and researcher on climate crisis. He's also a member of the Global Air Force Climate Change Collaboration Group and author of many books and articles on the environment. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.